afternoon, everybody. Gerald here, and it has been quite the eventful day. It is now Friday, 2 days before Christmas, and we've had this cold front move through just about the entire eastern United States. So let me know what you saw. Tell me how bad it was where you're at, what the winds got up to, how quickly your temperature dropped, and how low you got to. Love to hear about some of that stuff. But let's go ahead and get right into what we have left of this cold front, and then we'll look ahead into the period after Christmas and give you a general idea of what you can expect across the country. So right now, as you can see, temperatures are pretty brutally cold through a big portion of the United States this afternoon. Sub-zero temperatures getting as far south as parts of Tennessee, and that's at about 3:30 in the afternoon. So super impressive stuff here for December, and it's not hard to find that cold front. As you can see, it's in this general area, moving off the southeast coast down into Florida. And still pushing through New England, where it's actually 56 in Boston right now, while it's 4 degrees in Nashville. So pretty crazy stuff there with this cold front. Let's also look at the wind chills, because of course the wind is whipping behind this cold front, and sub-zero degree wind chills as far south as Little Rock. You're at about 2 degrees in Atlanta, and then you're working your way there into the Carolinas, with about 13 degrees in Charlotte, and those will continue to drop as we go into the overnight, likely seeing sub-zero wind chills all the way down to Atlanta, maybe not most, but a section of upstate South Carolina, a good portion of North Carolina, and then of course everywhere north of there, getting into the really cold stuff with close to negative 50 degree wind chills likely in the northern plains. So let's go and look at radar real quick, as this system is still pushing through the northeast here. Still some pretty heavy rain ongoing in those areas up here in New England, where we're still above the freezing mark. But in sections of New Jersey, you actually changed over to a pretty good quick burst of snow. Same for New York City and other parts of New York State. And that will likely continue into portions of Connecticut, maybe changing over to a quick burst of snow up into parts of western Massachusetts and then into Vermont and New Hampshire, where these areas have gotten a lot of rain here with this onshore flow. And the winds here have really been whipping too. I think there have been gusts upwards of 60 miles an hour in a lot of these areas. So that'll go ahead and move through within the next couple of hours, and we'll have to go ahead and then talk about the temperatures going into tonight and then into your Christmas. So we'll go ahead and start here in the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys. Again, already brutally cold right now, single digits and sub-zero temperatures up into Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, and then teens further south into the deep south. As we go into the overnight, though, those temperatures will continue to plummet going into early tomorrow morning. Widespread single digits into northern Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, upstate South Carolina, the foothills in Piedmont and North Carolina, and then just about the entire state of Tennessee, Kentucky, and most of Missouri, southern Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, seeing single digits tomorrow morning with isolated spots getting into below zero territory. And likely the places that you have higher snowpack up here, you're more likely to get into those sub-zero temperatures as modeled here. And then, of course, into the mountains of the Appalachians, some areas will likely crack more than down negative 10 degrees going into Christmas Eve morning. So whenever you get to that, and with the wind chill factor, you definitely want to be careful. Make sure that you're checking on pets and any elderly people you may know, or neighbors or family. So we'll go ahead and move this forward now into Christmas Eve afternoon. Highs only getting to about 30 across a big section of the deep south here. Most of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina likely not getting above freezing tomorrow. And then 20s are pretty widespread across most of Tennessee, Kentucky, and then teens as you go further north for highs tomorrow. And then going into your Christmas morning, temperatures, again, pretty similar to the night before, maybe a touch warmer in most places, but overall a pretty similar story as Christmas Eve morning. All right, so let's go ahead and now look at the southeast here. We already touched on a lot of these areas, but I do want to touch on Florida just because it isn't included in the other map. So Florida, right now that front is moving through, and then going into the overnight, temperatures will continue to plummet through much of the Sunshine State, with sub-freezing temperatures getting as far south as Orlando and even just a little north of Lake Okeechobee down here, with temperatures below 40 across the west coast southwest coast of Florida from Fort Myers up to Cape Coral, and up towards Tampa might even crack the freezing mark. So, of course, very impressive temperatures here for Florida. And then mid 40s as you go along the southeast coast of Florida. And then, of course, higher temperatures down into the Keys. And then a pretty similar story going into your Christmas Eve afternoon here in Florida. Highs in the 40s and upper 30s through a big portion of central Florida. And, of course, up into the Panhandle, cooler temperatures. And then 50s once you get down into the southeastern coast of Florida. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Mid-Atlantic now. Again, pretty similar story here. Super cold tonight into your Christmas Eve morning with single digits, pretty widespread from the Piedmont of South Carolina all the way up into Virginia and Maryland. And then super cold Christmas Eve day, not getting above freezing, likely being stuck into the 20s across most of the Mid-Atlantic here, all the way to the coastline. And then once again, a cold night on Christmas Eve going into Christmas Day with temperatures once again struggling here to get above that freezing mark. If I can get this to the right, there you go. That's Christmas afternoon here, struggling to get above freezing, and most of the Mid-Atlantic here likely will get there here into the Carolinas, with still below freezing temperatures into the mountains. All right, go ahead and look at the Northeast now. Again, that front is still moving through here in the Northeast, so places like Boston still haven't quite had the front move through. Most of New Hampshire and Maine as well still have some time to go. But as we go into the overnight, that front will move through. Temperatures will crash into the teens in a big section here of New England. Just because the front still hasn't moved through, you won't have as much time to get the temperatures down below like we do further back west. But single digits widespread across Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New York tonight. And then teens likely through a big section of Maine as the front moves through, going into sundown and overnight. As for highs tomorrow afternoon on Christmas Eve, likely teens through much of New England here, and then single digits here into the Poconos and the higher elevation terrain into New England. And then for your Christmas Day, warming up into the 20s on Christmas Day before another cold night going into Christmas night. So let's go ahead and touch on wind chills as well real quick. I do want to show you that on a nationwide view. I don't want to do it regionally just because I talk a lot and I don't want this video to last forever. But again, super cold night tonight with the wind chills. Sub-zero wind chills getting as far south as even central Georgia here, up towards Raleigh, maybe even Columbia, South Carolina, and then just about the entire state of Tennessee, northbound, will be below 0 degrees for around daybreak tomorrow, with those wind chills included. And then, of course, brutal temperatures back here into the northern plains, close to negative 50 degrees with that wind chill factor included. Going into tomorrow afternoon, winds will likely begin to lighten up through a pretty big section of the east here, and especially the southeast. So it feels like temperatures in the 20s for a good section of the southeast, and then 40s and 30s down into central Florida, and then still sub-zero wind chills across the Ohio River Valley up here and the Great Lakes. All right, so let's talk a little bit about after this system, now that it is moving through, and we've talked about the cold temperatures we will have to deal with for the next couple of days. We do have a chance of another small system, a bit of a clipper system moving down out of Canada going into early next week, so I do want to touch on that. We'll start by looking at the Euro ensembles for total snowfall here. Again, as you can see, snow coming down into the Dakotas, and then eventually down here into areas that have already gotten some snow from this last system, Iowa down into Illinois, and maybe even some light accumulations as far south as Tennessee and western North Carolina may be receiving a dusting. But again, nothing crazy here, a 1 to 3 inch kind of event through this swath here. And it looks unlikely any other areas will get snow out of this right now. Of course, I'll let you know if anything changes with that. But this really just looks like a pretty weak clipper system right now that will move through these areas. These are the GFS ensembles, a little bit more bullish here, but still really the 1 to 3 range, with maybe snow getting as far south as Tennessee and western North Carolina with this system. So let's go ahead and talk about what to look forward to going into the new year. And if you're tired of the cold, good news, we're definitely going to warm up as we get into the New Year's here. So that'll definitely be a nice break from some of these brutally cold temperatures that have overtaken the eastern United States. So this is from the 29th of December to the 2nd of January. as you can see, super high likelihood of seeing above normal temperatures here in the eastern United States, and even above normal temperatures likely further out west from California and out into the Rockies. And this will all be responsible due to the fact that we're going to have kind of the overall steering pattern in the atmosphere, I guess, relax a bit, and the jet stream is going to pull back north into Canada, and we're going to be likely to get this Pacific air to blow in from the Pacific Ocean and flow pretty freely throughout the United States going into this time frame. I do want to show you real quick, actually, also the 8 to 14 day temps. So this is going through about the first week of January. This pattern looks to stay locked in, and with this mild Pacific air, we're also going to have a pretty rainy pattern for most of the country going, really for the 6 to 14 day period as a whole, as a jet stream or the, I guess, southern jet will begin to set up shop through here and send plenty of rain and moisture throughout the country. So I'll go ahead and show this to you in another way, looking at the Euro ensembles for temperature anomalies. So this just shows how above or below average the temperatures are at a given time from what you would normally expect this time of year. All right, so going into Christmas Day here, of course, the entire eastern United States still locked in with that above normal temperatures and warmer out west. You'll see that warmer air out west will slowly begin to work its way into the east going into late next week. So going into New Year's, temperatures will begin to moderate here in the east. Still some holdout areas along the eastern seaboard, maybe going as late as Thursday of next week before we really begin to warm up. And we have temperatures ranging really anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees above normal going into New Year's. And we look for that pattern to really lock into place pretty heavily here, likely going through the first week or two of January. So that's all I really have right now. Again, I hope everyone is staying safe. Hopefully you all still have power. I had my power flash here a couple of times in the upstate of South Carolina as we had winds almost at 60 miles an hour move through this area. So again, let me know what you saw from the front. Tell me where you're watching from. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas Eve and stay warm this weekend.